February the 15th, 1944. Allied bombers are closing in on a target in southern Italy. The objective is an unusual one, the monastery of Monte Cassino. The Germans have declared the site a neutral zone, although Allied command suspects this is a ruse and so has ordered the monastery's destruction. Dropping 1,150 tons of bombs, the sacred site is turned into a cauldron of flame and debris. But the Germans have kept their word. Instead of destroying a military target, the bombing kills sheltering civilians and monks. Elite German paratroopers rush into the ruins, turning the monastery into a fortress.
The Battle of Monte Cassino witnessed some of the fiercest fighting of the Second World War. The town and monastery at Cassino were seen as key objectives on the road to Rome, and thousands died in the fighting. With static lines, artillery bombardments, and over-the-top charges against fortified enemy positions, it was reminiscent of a bloody First World War engagement.
Despite the Allies' best efforts, the German lines refused to crack. In spring 1944, after months of struggle, a new nationality was thrown into the battle: the Polish Second Corps.
The story of the men and women of the Polish Second Corps begins on the 1st September 1939 with the invasion of Poland by Nazi Germany. On the 17th of September 1939, Poland is also invaded by the USSR. Poland is then divided between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. Around about 20,000 Polish officers, members of the security agencies, members of the intelligentsia are taken prisoner by the Russians, and these men in April and May 1940 are liquidated by the Soviet security agency, the NKVD. One of the sites at which the massacre occurs is the Katyn Forest near Smolensk. At the same time, in the first half of 1940, there are waves of deportation of Polish people.
Polish Second Corps signalman Alexander Bogdan was only a teenager when he and his family were deported to a work camp in Siberia.
My family were on the list to be deported to Russia. And what was very disgusting, they told us to make a hole in the bottom of the train to do the private stuff. No food, no cleanliness, and lots of people were dying like flies.
The fate of the deported Poles suddenly changes in June 1941 with Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union. As German forces drove deep into Soviet territory, Stalin made a deal with Britain and Poland. In return for British aid, Stalin would release the Polish deportees, and he allowed them to form their own army.
We discovered that the Polish army being formed. I made the application and I got a reply that I have to report, and they will give me the papers for food and also tickets to go to the Polish army.
Commanded by the experienced General Władysław Anders, this new force was released from Soviet control, shipped in terrible conditions to Iran, where it came under British command. Extensively trained in the Middle East and North Africa, the Polish Second Corps was shipped to Italy in early 1944. With the Allies desperate to make a breakthrough at Monte Cassino, Anders was approached by the British in late March 1944 and asked if the Poles were ready to take part in the latest front-wide breakthrough effort, Operation Diadem. The Poles would be responsible for taking Monte Cassino and the surrounding areas. Anders readily agreed, knowing that the eyes of the world would be watching.
As the Poles moved into their positions, clambering over jagged rocks and along steep exposed trails, they found themselves at the mercy of enemy sniper and artillery fire.
On the evening of May the 11th, Operation Diadem started. Around 1,600 Allied guns opened up on the German positions.
At 1:30 a.m. on May the 12th, the Poles launched their first assault. They encountered heavy machine gun fire and thousands of mines. Hundreds were killed and many more wounded.
You see, when you hear on the radio the word killed, 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 I was very upset. There were such heavy losses. That's absolutely incredible.
4 days later, a second Polish assault was made. Once again they faced horrific casualties, but this time they secured a greater foothold, with key German positions taken around the monastery.
As the Poles prepared for the final push against the monastery, German command in Italy decided to move its forces back, hoping to realign their defences.
Suspecting the enemy had withdrawn completely, a Polish reconnaissance unit was sent to explore the monastery on May the 18th. They found a vision of hell. a place of corpses and rubble, mingled with the smells of decay, bodily waste and cordite. Raising the Polish and Union flags over the ruins, it was an emotional moment.
It's something, you can't even describe. I don't know. Oh yes, we can do it. From being prisoners in Russia, now we manage to show the world that we can fight.
News that the Polish Second Corps had finally cracked Monte Cassino and helped unlock the road to Rome flashed across the world.
The ruined Benedictine Abbey on Monte Cassino, long a German fortress, is abandoned. Hordes of German prisoners are taken as the enemy stronghold surrenders.
Total Polish casualties at Monte Cassino included 860 dead and over 2,800 wounded. On June the 5th, 1944, American forces triumphantly entered Rome, the first Axis capital to be captured. However, the moment of glory was short-lived, as news of the D-Day landings in Normandy captured the world's imagination the following day.
The Italian theatre was now secondary to Northwest Europe, and many of the men came to believe their sacrifices and achievements were being overlooked by the press and public alike.
As the Poles continued the advance through Italy against stubborn German resistance, news broke in August that the Warsaw Uprising had begun. For the men of the Polish Second Corps, it was a bitter moment, as they were unable to help.
You hear day after day, help, and we're fighting for Italy? For whom? Oh, in the end, you don't know what the hell you're fighting for. You see, you want to fight for your own country.
But for Bogdan and his comrades, worse news was to come in the months to follow.
At the peace conference in Yalta in early 1945, Churchill and Roosevelt accepted Stalin's post-war vision of Eastern Europe. Poland was condemned to becoming a Soviet satellite. There would be no triumphant return home for the Polish veterans.
You're fighting for something and you don't get it. And in the end, it's no happy ending.
Many view the long and bitter struggle to take Monte Cassino as a physical manifestation of the wider battle the Poles faced during and immediately after the war.
Today, the Poles who fought in the Second World War form another integral community within Canada, with most arriving in the country during the late 1940s and early 1950s.
They are rightly proud of their history and take special care to remember the sacrifices that men like Alexander Bogdan and his comrades made over 70 years ago today.
As the slogan of the time had it, they were fighting for their freedom and yours.